Jai Baba, Hariom, Namaste. Okay, so I'm going to talk about Saturn, Lord Shani, Saturn in Aries. Saturn has moved into tropical Aries as of May 31st, 2025, and it is now there in tropical Aries going retrograde, so we're feeling the effects even more. And it's actually going to leave back into Pisces. It's going to retrograde back into Pisces in September, around September 1st. So we have only 2 more weeks of this, and then it will cut off, and then it will turn back on in February. Saturn will be permanently moving back in Aries from February 14th, Valentine's Day, February 14th, 2026, all the way throughout 2026, all throughout 2027, and into April 13th, 2028. So that's going to be a major difficult window of time for the world, because when Saturn is debilitated, well, whenever it's in a tough sign, it's there for like 2 years. So there's a long period of difficulties being scheduled for the planet. And this is when a lot of the toughest things happen, which I'm going to explain and make a case for in this video. Before I do that, give a little bit more on the transits and how it operates. So right now we're in this like threshold window where the Saturn in Pisces has not yet ended. So if you watched my videos on that, I did like a 3 or a 4-part series of videos on that. And a lot of people benefited a lot from those. And they predicted an insane amount of mundane events and like all the water disasters and things we've had. Go back and watch that 4-part series if you want. And what's wild is that's still really relevant. So that's actually still going to be more true for you guys like this fall. So I highly recommend watching that and understanding why there are so many natural water disasters going on, because Saturn is conjunct Neptune and retrograding in Pisces with Rahu. So the water element is really harmed and wounded and dangerous at this time. And this is why we're having so many crazy water-related things going on, and we'll continue to have that this fall. Such as hurricanes, storms, flooding, this sort of thing. So that's going to be going on this year, but then Saturn will move into Aries permanently on February 14th, 2026. So that's going to be a very challenging Valentine's Day. Next Valentine's Day will probably be a very rather unlucky one, unfortunately. And then we will have like this 2-year period, which will have difficulties in it. So it's important for us to talk about this. Now, I'm not trying to frame anything negatively ever as an astrologer. And so why is Saturn seen so negatively and so maligned? It's because, Saturn really is kind of the planet, like Western astrology says, he's the planet of our greatest lessons. He's like the toughest teacher. Well, Vedic agrees with that completely, because we say that Saturn is the lord of karma. So Saturn's actually the lord of karma over all your difficult karma especially. Okay, so to understand Saturn in Aries, it's really helpful to have this little bit of information. But before I go into that, negative things in life are there to teach us, they're there as our teachers. Saturn, when he aspects or hits you, he brings about negative things in your life in order for you to make a change on some level, in order for you to experience your own karma dished back out to you, or for you to realize you're done with a thing and to move on from it. So Saturn rules old age. Well, when you get older, you just start being like, I'm over this. I don't need to do that. I don't want to do that anymore. I'm not going to go out anymore. This is Saturn. That's one simple angle of Saturn. And that's also maturity. So Saturn is actually the planet of psychological maturity, which is why he rules Capricorn Aquarius. Aquarius is the sign of psychology, and the holding of the water, being a water bearer, symbolizes holding a healthy psyche, a healthy emotional, spiritual water psyche. which we did a really cool Aquarius video talking a lot about that on the Patreon, the Gemini course on Aquarius Swamp. You should watch that video if you're curious to know more about Aquarius. Okay, so Saturn's job is to kind of like mature you and make you psychologically healthy and mature enough to really do the karmas and actions you're meant to do in this life, and to basically uphold the good and the dharma of life in general, to make life more bearable for everyone, such as being a water bearer, making tanks and ponds, and giving people access to clean water is a super simple, universal way that this is done. So Saturn's job is really to grow us up and make us psychologically mature. You ever notice how people before their first Saturn return around 28, 29, 30, they're just like children? I was basically a child before that. I don't really think we're truly adults until we've had that first Saturn return. That's how like I'm going to talk about negative things, but just remember that these are all like big picture things, and they are there as teachers when these events come up. So when Saturn hits you with grief or depression or the loss of a pet or something, you almost like, if you can, you want to like not run from it and just accept it and like see Saturn and be like, hey, grief, like that is also a divine thing. You know what I mean? Hey, sorrow, hey, depression, like, yeah, you can come visit me a little while, and maybe try not to run from it and accept it, and then let it fade off as you really accept and go through that emotion rather than suppress it. Feel it, and then it will exhaust itself and move on and leave you, and Saturn will leave you alone and go to someone else. This is like a more simple, almost mythological way to explain it, but this is kind of how it works with archetypes. Okay, so now let's explain a little bit about the concepts of it. So Aries and Libra are this opposite sign. You know these signs. Aries is a sign of spring. Sun is exalted there. The warrior energy is strongest. Just charge forth. Do more. Push harder. Train harder. Go more. You know what I mean? Pull the trigger more. That's Aries is the container of that type of consciousness. And that's what it's meant to do, which is why the sun is exalted there. Libra is the opposite. It's like fall is coming, the harvest, all the grain is here, but winter is about to come. It's time to eat up. It's time to enjoy life for once. It's time to eat and drink and be merry and get a fat belly so that you don't starve during winter. It's ruled by Venus. It's the time of enjoying life, Oktoberfest in Europe, drink, you know what I mean? Or whatever, like the harvest, eat, have a festive, experience. Even Thanksgiving, which is more towards Scorpio time, but that general autumn time. Eat, gain weight, relax, slow down. It's a Vata time. Enjoy your life, That's why Sun is debilitated in Libra, because Sun is that active, powerful force. Well, he's actually going to sleep and he's stopping making the days. He's going into the underworld. So essentially, when you think about Saturn, it's opposite. Saturn is exalted in Libra and debilitated in Aries, because Saturn is the part of you that is the servant. It's the servant amongst the castes of the planets. It's the old man. Well, the old man can only do so much, like if you're an old man in springtime and Aries time, he can't just all of a sudden be like, I'm going to go to the gym and pump iron like I'm 25 again. He can do a little bit more because of that Aries energy than he could in the fall, but there are limitations to it. So Saturn, the planet of dealing with limitations, the planet of taking your time, the planet of being patient and slow and being a servant, and just think about servants. They just rest whenever they get the chance to. They don't have many chances to, so if they get a chance, they will rest. You see, this type of energy of Saturn is more exalted in a Libra sign, a Libra container of energy, because Libra is ruled by Venus, the planet of fulfillment, of enjoying life, weighing the scales. Would this be more fulfilling? Would this be better? We got to get more pleasure and rejuvenation from eating and drinking at this Oktoberfest and going and training at the gym all day, every day. Yeah, I might just get that, So Saturn is strongest in Libra, the sign of rest, relaxation, enjoy a woman, a man, another person, enjoy social life, enjoy pleasures, food, the aim of life of desire. There's a time and a place for that. Saturn is debilitated in Aries because that's the time of fighting, war, challenging, push harder, ram your head up against the thing until you break through it. Well, if an old man tries to do that, he just breaks his skull, If a strong football player with helmet padding charges through, he can break through because that's like a sun. You see, so the sun does really well in Aries. It's exalted there. Saturn does the worst in Aries. And so basically, Saturn is our ability to bear our burdens. And so when Saturn's debilitated in Aries, it's like he has the least ability to bear burdens, the least ability to do all of his things, to give you rest, to relax. You know what I mean? Because it's his job to do that. His job is to keep everything going like a servant. And Saturn's enemy is Mars because Mars gives him too much work to do. That's not really important even. And it overwhelms him, and then he can't even do the one thing well. So this is why Saturn does bad in Scorpio or Aries, or even if he's with Mars or aspected by Mars, which is happening right now also. So Saturn is agitated on both levels. So basically, anytime Saturn's in a sign of Mars, he's agitated. If he's aspected by Mars, he's also agitated. If he's in... So this explains why he does so bad in Aries, is because he's agitated by his enemy Mars. What does that mean? In a natal chart, or what a lot of you are feeling in the transits, is like you feel like you're always a little bit more behind. Like whatever you got done, Mars is like, you should have gotten it done yesterday, you old man, you slow old person, why are you taking so long? And you'll actually also attract people in your life to tell you that if you have this. And even if you have just Saturn just aspected by Mars or with Mars or in Scorpio too, you'll always feel more behind, more slow. Like Mars kind of always is emphasizing that that Saturn is just not fast enough, not sharp enough. Whatever you got done, he's going to criticize it. He's not going to focus on the good. He's going to point out the bad. If you did 10 things perfect, the 11th thing wasn't, he's going to call out that 11th thing. Like I know if I have a student in astrology that I'm tutoring and they have Saturn really strong starred by Mars, and I know to be careful with what I criticize them on, because then they might be overcompensate on getting that thing perfect the next time. You know what I mean? It's like, no, wait, oh man, I got you too uptight about that. You know what I mean? It's like, I really want you to be relaxed as best as possible, but just seeing that. I have the agitation of Saturn from Mars, so I was like that as a student as well. And so you see this actually in almost like a third of all people to some degree. Saturn in Aries is when it's most extreme. So that also means a third of all the people on the planet are going to fall prey to this and get affected by it to some varying degrees, probably more. And that's why we're headed towards a lot of war karma, if you're starting to get the picture, and other difficult things. And, basically Libra is the sign of diplomacy, of trade, of getting what you want. And Saturn's exalted there because that's the important way to survive and get your needs met, is to interact with nature diplomatically and trade with the goddess, with Venus, right? Yeah, so Aries is not the sign of trade. Saturn in Aries, or basically Aries, someone who's got really strong Aries stuff and has Libra bad, like a Rahu in Libra, they will just fight and take what they get. They will just steal for what they want rather than follow the rules of society and wait in line for the check at the bank. They'll just go at night and rob the bank or something. You know what I mean? And might get caught and go to jail if their Aries isn't perfect, or basically most likely isn't if it's this type of person doing this. So there's kind of like this want to break down, like this impatient quality that you'll feel this time that you've probably been feeling over the summer. And it's like short patience, like very little patience. Every little thing will aggravate you more, like just nature. Bugs been biting me and bothering me more, like just chores, just all little things I notice, like, oh, it's like kind of agitating me more. Do you notice this? Again, these are just teachers. These are just things so that you can catch, I'm thinking negative thought again. And yeah, just more negative thoughts and negative ideas are likely coming in and are probably going to come in even more in 2026 and 2027 when Jupiter's not exalted to buffer it. So we need to start working on this now if we're going to be wise about it. So when a negative thought comes to me, I just do my best to catch it and then say, oh, yeah, why am I thinking that negative thought? I know as a yogi that all thought force is creative in its nature. And if I keep thinking that way, I will create more negativity in my life. So, no, I will select again until I get a positive thought. And it's kind of hard until if you don't practice it, it gets better. But it's like sometimes you really can't think of another positive thought at all. And so then maybe you do just accept the grief and kind of just sit with it for a while. But the moment you feel that shift, breathe into that shift and then start finding another positive thought to think and stick to it and select it and pursue that thought. Okay, so just like a video game, just like be like restart, let me select a new character with a new story, you know what I mean, or whatever, let me just try again and focus on what's positive and keep doing this. And this is you basically healing your karma, healing your avasthas, strengthening your Saturn for the rest of your life and your next incarnation. But you have to exhaust and wear off that karma, and it's one of the very common ones is like this sort of not feeling like you have enough time to move forward or energy or ability to move forward, and the world is like you should be here but you're over there and you're not. And that is a tough one. So you have to just be aware of this and work with this as best you can, and watch out for this feeling of like I need to compensate for my sense of lack. And so sometimes people with Saturn and Aries will do, you know what I mean? Or go, almost because they're running from that sense of lack or to compensate. But is it really going to fix the deeper lack? That's what you have to make sure you're not just doing busy work. You know what I mean? And just doing things that, again, Mars is just giving you too much stuff to do that isn't really important and isn't really the real thing. Or like another way to see it is like a Saturn exalted is like maybe not even that talented or does that well, but they just persevered and hanged in there and were patient and almost kind of just simple. You know what I mean? And they had that simple devotion type of intelligence and good tactfulness and good people person, was good to everyone, you know? Saturn Aries is kind of opposite. So we have to work on this like tendency to want to just impulsively take or be impatient, like, and essentially this is where like rape and stuff comes into play. Like this is much more prominent with Saturn Aries. Is I've heard, I mean, wild stories that clients have told me that I cannot share here, that you wouldn't want to hear, have a Saturn has been in Aries as the culprit for a lot of those situations. So because Aries is basically super wounded and breaking down, and it's just like impulsively I want what I want. So that becomes violence, or it can be sexual abuse, or on a grander worldly scale it's war, and then on a weird scale it is natural disasters, because natural disasters are related to every human's emotional, mental health. Believe it or not, all gurus, like a lot of gurus, a lot of masters have talked about that. A lot of different sources have talked about that. Edgar Cayce even said how solar flares and sunspot activity increases at times when the Earth is under a lot of strain and stress. As above, so below, right? Okay, so let's talk about now a little bit about the mundane stuff that we have seen with Saturn and Aries in past years as a way to sort of prepare ourselves, and make sure we try to do our best to avoid what we can, and then just make peace with the inevitable, because there is a certain amount of things that will be inevitable. Like when the pandemic happened in 2019, I wrote, Saturn and all these planets in the eclipses in Capricorn and Cancer is like we're going to have crazy flooding and water related issues and respiratory issues and stuff. And that we saw how that played out. Or like how, when I was talking about, again, Saturn and Pisces, like all these more storms and flooding related issues. There's a certain amount of that that's just inevitable. Like no matter what you did, you wouldn't have been able to avoid being affected by the pandemic, you know what I mean? Or affected by these storms, like for a lot of people. So anyways, one of the simplest ways to see it is the worst wars typically break out when Saturn is in Aries. So we have to watch out for aggression building up, you know? Um, World War II started under this, the worst war of all history. World War II started under this. The Spanish Civil War also started under this, which was a really brutal thing. I don't know a lot about that, so I'm not going to talk about it too much. Stalin's Great Purge. That was that was actually even, in terms of numbers, that killed more people than like anything else, and it's not talked about much. Kristallnacht, that situation happened in during this period. Then 30 years later, it was in like 1966 to 69 that Saturn went through Aries. And then we had more of the same. We had the Vietnam War escalating. Vietnam War basically started and escalated, and like a lot of the most horrible stuff happened at that time. What I think is fascinating is like we had that peak of the 60s and then the crash in 69, like when Woodstock happened and the Hells Angels, like if you know about the story, they trampled and killed a bunch of hippies, these bikers who were hard to do security, and everyone was like, it's the end of the 60s. It was like at the end of 69, and it was Saturn was in Aries, and it was just a nightmare, bad trip sort of experience. Also, a lot of a lot of interesting things happened with gurus during that time in my life, like Avatar Meher Baba, the avatar of the age of Lord Vishnu, happened to check out when Saturn was in Aries. At that time, he was like, all right, I'm done here, going back to my realm. And also the avatar of martial arts, O-sensei, Morihei Ueshiba, also passed away at that time, which I find really fascinating since Aries is a sign of martial arts. He was an enlightened bodhisattva who did a lot for Japanese culture by creating like a martial art that could heal them from violent war trauma and not just increase more competition, more warlike stuff. So, because Aikido is the first martial art based on non-violence and love and harmony and causing the least amount of harm to your attacker, like subduing your attacker while causing the least amount of harm to them. So very Venusian, like high-minded soul, O-sensei, he also passed away in that year. Then you had Mao's Cultural Revolution, which was really negative and gnarly. Then you had MLK Jr. and JFK getting assassinated during that window of time. Those were two of the most tragic, most famous tragic assassinations happening. It's very possible we're going to see other famous assassinations going on in this time period. So I don't know who yet, but I think that's very possible. Then, flashing forward to 1996 to 99, the only time I was alive, that's the thing, Saturn takes so long. Unless you're over 40, you haven't even seen this. You've never even been mature enough to see a Saturn in Aries like me, so we have no idea what to expect. And again, this is why Saturn is the Lord of Time just laughs at us, because we're over here just trying to do astrology and think we know what's coming when I'm literally only 1 year old in Saturn's era. I'm 38, so I'm not even 2 years old. Okay, so Chechen War happened from 96 to 99, very difficult time. There was this 1997 Asian financial crisis that I don't know anything about, but apparently it was a very big deal. I was a kid, I didn't know. The Rwandan genocide, also a very big deal. The Monica Lewinsky scandal and all that. And also the Unabomber guy and that whole scandal. If you were in America, you definitely knew about that. It was a really big deal. Going further back even, there was this great famine in Bengal that happened when Saturn was in tropical Aries. Then there were the Napoleonic Wars. They happened during this period. There was also the Irish Rebellion of 1798, the Great Panic of 1857, a great financial crisis. Then there was another great panic of 1907. So Saturn Aries creates financial panics. You see why? What I previously explained makes you impatient. If you've studied financial astrology with me on the Patreon, you know that Saturn exalted in Aries is the best investor, the best trader. So Saturn debilitated in Aries is probably one of the worst traders or worst investors because they're not able to see the long term and they're impatient. They just shake themselves out of the market. As I explained in the course, there's a famous saying, dead people make the best investors, because stock firms went through their best traders and their best accounts once, and they found all their best traders were people who had died. And so, of course, they didn't sell anything. They just didn't sell anything. They were people who had died and just kept their stocks. So, and not touch anything. So again, Saturn, just be dead. Like, there's such a virtue and such a time to be dead, to be inert, to go to sleep. Think about how weak you are when you don't sleep well. You know what I mean? That's essentially a debilitated Saturn, someone who's not resting, who's not honoring that mortal side of themselves that is only able to do so much. That is Saturn. Sun is the God side of you. I'm one, I'm pure, I am the Shivoham, like I am that. I'm just going to be me no matter what. If I just burn, even if I die tomorrow, I'm going to burn my fire today in meditation, whatever. That's the Sun, that's Shiva, that's like Leo, and the Sun in Aries exalted with the Sun there. Saturn's total opposite. You see? So it's not necessarily the time for that sort of attitude either. Okay, so there were lots of other things that I asked Grok about, going further and further back. We've made a case for it. You can learn more of that. In this time so far, we've already seen, since just like 2.5 months or so of Saturn in Aries, we saw the whole thing with Diddy getting basically no charges. Wow, that's really gnarly and just debilitating for the world in a way to see that. We get told that the Epstein list doesn't exist. And then we get like a further and further just complete crumbling situation with that. That's just like, I don't even know. I haven't even followed the latest thing, but it's just like getting more and more unhappy, or just, dissatisfying, we could say. We could say definitely that's probably like the worst thing that's happened this year politically, I think. But then of course, on a more physical scale, the Israel-Iran stuff, it's wild, because in my forecasts, even like last year, I was forecasting how this year we're going to have like a World War III type thing, but a false peace because of Jupiter there, and then Aries is going to retrograde. So Jupiter is going to be there and buffer that almost World War III thing, and that we're going to think is going to happen, but then Saturn's going to retrograde into Pisces, and Jupiter will be ruling it then, so he'll buffer it. The world will seem a little bit safer, and then when in 2026, when that changes, and when Saturn goes back in Aries, then it starts to change, and then Jupiter will leave Cancer, and there will still be some buffering because he'll be in Leo, but it will get a lot gnarlier then. And then it will get really bad when Jupiter is in Virgo, most likely, because he'll be starved there and unable to do much to protect the world. So I really see that happening, where we're getting these, like, we're having talks, we're having a false peace right now, but we're definitely headed for something difficult coming up, at least with the astrology. And if you just look at the way the world is, it just fits. And then again, there's like natural disasters, like that volcano explosion in Italy. Volcanoes are definitely, I think, going to be more prominent with Saturn Aries, because Aries is a sign of mountains, and it's a fire sign, and Saturn rules the wind element and the metal element, like the smoke, you know what I mean, of a volcano. So, and then with Neptune there, Neptune causes these cataclysmic, massive disasters. So yeah, I'm a little concerned about that. I live by the coast. I'm certainly concerned with hurricanes. Even like here in Charleston during 4th of July, there was surprisingly large amount of fireworks stands that exploded, that caught fire and accidentally exploded, which never happens, even though it's so like iconic and so easy to happen. Well, it started happening more. There was even lightning that struck a power, some sort of power generator thing, like for the electrical systems. I'm blanking out what that's called, but it caused the most crazy explosion. And during a thunderstorm, like lightning struck and it exploded in flames, and then there were flames at other places. And people were talking on the internet about how this is like a Michael Bay movie, that like it looks like something from a real movie, and it just happened down the road from me during a thunderstorm. So I guess basically the possibility of negative things is a lot higher at this time. So let's just, do our absolute best to remind ourselves that all thought is creative in its nature, because Aries is the head. Aries is the source of our ideas and our inspiration. And so when Saturn's in Aries, it's a lot easier to get yourself down negatively, like we said, and just start thinking negative thoughts and pushing that out, not even realizing we're doing it. And I've really seen myself do this and try to catch myself as much as possible. So but I noticed progress when I was doing this. So like, yes, I'm catching myself, and I'm just select again. If you've ever done certain types of meditation, it's like that. You just learn to observe the thoughts as they're coming in, and if it's a really good thought, you do learn to like hold on to it. But if it's not good, you just label it like, okay, I'm just thinking about that girl again, whatever. I'm just thinking about this work I have to do again. Oh yeah. I'm thinking about the future. I'm thinking about the past. I'm not thinking about the now. And again, just select again until you're back in the present with a positive, inspiring thought, and you're more on the good, exalted Jupiter vibe. All right, well, thanks, you guys. If you enjoy this, please leave a like, a subscribe, buy me a coffee. Still only 3 people in my history of YouTubing have bought me a coffee, so I super appreciate that, aside from my mother. Yeah, you can, if you really want to learn Vedic astrology, you really want to learn stuff, please consider checking out my Patreon. It's where my whole business is done. If you're just on YouTube, you're not even going to see a lot of what I'm up to. And for $33 a month, you get to have access to all my astrology courses, like over 240 videos. You get a free monthly forecast for each of the 12 signs, where I talk about all this very in depth, down to the Lagna, so you can know your Lagna, and also other people you can get the forecast for them. So even if you don't study astrology, for $30 a month, you get like a great 3-minute forecast for your Lagna. It's honestly very useful, very helpful. It's not a lot. It's like 3 minutes for each sign or so. But it's very helpful. And then you also get discounts on tutoring, where you can. That's where the real progress happens. I've trained many successful astrologers in just one-on-one tutoring. So I highly suggest that. And then, you have like all these courses. Then I also have the financial tier for $44 a month. You get access to all my financial astrology courses and a monthly crypto forecast. Crypto is also, going to be very active coming up, so it could be a very good time for that. Then, you can also subscribe to the $55 level and get like access to all of it altogether. So that's pretty much it, you guys. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe. Hari Om. Thank you.